Please give it up for my dear friend Brent Wees.
Thanks,
Thank you
pal.
very much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Good morning, everybody. This is awesome. Thank you so much for coming out. Like David said, I literally was just about to just run this through a little bit. Then I was going to sleep for 20 minutes. I was literally going to airplane mode when that came up. I was just talking to my wife, and Dave's like, "Can you come down?" Sure, I can come down. It's my one thing different, but this is all about doing one thing different today, and that's the point of this. And do one thing different is just that. My name is Brent Wees, and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you. There's program people in the room. I just wanted to let that sit out there for a minute. I wanted to sit there and let that resonate with you for a little bit because, you see, I've traveled this year. I've spoken in 5 countries, usually at automotive events like this. And I normally don't walk out on stage and tell everybody I'm an alcoholic. I've got friends in the room that know I am. I have people in my life that know I am. I'm pretty public about the fact that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's not something I do. So I've kind of done my one thing different today. Well, I've done 2 things now. David called me out early, but that's my one thing. But I want to talk to you more about that because really it's all about some things I realize and some things I want to take you through, my friends in this industry, based on my experiences in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now you have to understand, though, that I need to qualify what I said to you first, though, that I am an alcoholic. So I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. Just about 21 years ago, I was at that proverbial crossroads in my life. You know, I had allowed alcohol to rule everything about my day, rule everything about my life. I put it first before everything. It was before my family. It was before my friends. It was before my career. And over time, while I allowed alcohol to create a mountain of problems in front of me every single day, and every single day as I thought I was dealing with it in the best manner I could, I created a wake of wreckage behind me every single day, day in and day out. And I was so blind to what was going on in my life, this just rolled on and on and on. And I became a liar, a cheat, and a thief. It's that simple. Because when I'm an alcoholic, when I'm drinking, when I'm putting things first in my life, I'll lie to you to get you off my back about something. I'll steal from you so I can drink more. You know, I'll cheat you just because I'm bored and I'm drunk. It's that simple. But that's what I had become. And I was only 25 years old. 25 years old, I'm 8 years into alcoholism. I'm your proverbial ABC after school special, and I'm a nightmare. And everything about my life is spiraling. And someone in my life, someone I cared about, said to me at one point, she said, "I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. And I'm not going to ask you to live your life a way I need you to live it. But I care for you and I love you. But if you're going to behave and live your life the way you feel you need to live it, full of chaos, full of alcohol, I can't be around you." And that was really profound to me at that moment. And I don't know why it was that moment that it was so profound. But see, someone was making a decision on their life based on my action. They weren't asking me to do anything. They were saying they had to make changes in their life based on how I was behaving. And you see, I'm a liar, a cheat, and a thief. So I said I'd change. And the minute the G and the E of change got out of my mouth, she said, "Will you go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous?" And I thought, how did I get so sucked into this? You know, the swindler got swindled. I'm 25 years old. Most of my days I have airplane glue and a mohawk up my head, you know, this tall. And I live in downtown Toronto, and the first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous I'm going to is on a Friday night. Friday night, downtown Toronto, 25 years old, punk rock kid. You're going to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. There is nothing else I would rather be doing with myself at 25 years old on a Friday night in downtown Toronto. I walked into that meeting wearing a pair of WKRP in Cincinnati, Herb Tarlick pants. I would cut them and wear them as shorts. I had a pair of police boots I had spray painted purple, and I was wearing a t-shirt, I swear to God, that had Davy and Goliath on the front. Remember that cartoon, Davy and Goliath, claymation? And on the back it said, "Jesus is coming, look busy." I was dressing for success. I was ready to go. I still keep some of my punk rock, methodologies and ways of thinking. I dress it up a little bit more, I clean my sneakers up a little bit, wear, quieter shirts now, but that's the way I walked into this. And what was amazing about that is that was the last thing I wanted to do, and that night I heard someone twice my age tell my story. And although I didn't want to be there, that person's story was enough for me to stay in. It was enough for me to stay in, and for the next almost 21 years now, I've been doing that one day at a time, staying sober. The incredible thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is this. About 85 years ago, two gentlemen created this program, the first 12-step program. And there's been tons of things that have evolved out of the work they did. There's lots of 12-step programs out there, but when you hear that term, it's because of what Bill and Bob did 85 years ago. And it's a pretty powerful system based on the most simplest of steps. It's really, really easy. It's not rocket science. I was just talking to one of my sponsees the other night, and he's a really, really smart guy, and I said, this is the worst program for smart guys because they have the toughest time with it. It is not a hard program. And the more I started, really digging in with my own sponsees over the last 4 or 5 years, I started looking at these steps because, you see, on Sunday mornings, this is what I do. I get up, I go have breakfast with a bunch of dudes, and I go to a step meeting where we go through these 12 steps, one a week. We read it, we discuss it, we journal about it, we share with one another. And every week, for years, someone at the table goes, man, everyone can use these. About 4 years ago, I started thinking about that. Everyone can use these. And I got thinking about this industry and my friends in this industry, and I looked at being a vendor in this industry and a tech provider. I looked at my friends that worked at the dealerships, and I thought, man, we could use this. And I started messing around with the idea of what I call dealer rehab. You see, I wanted to take these 12 steps and I wanted to rewrite them for you. I wanted to share these awesome things that I use every day to put my best foot forward, because the only way I succeed at staying sober, the only way that I do this day in and day out is I have to put myself first. I have to do the work with me first. I can't rely on anybody else. I do have to put myself first, and I have to work on myself first. They say it's a selfish program, and it is. I have to do that work. And I thought, man, I could really dig writing this. And I wrote and I rewrote these 12 steps, and I rewrote them for my friends in the automotive industry so I could take them through it. And I bounced this off friends that were also in the rooms of AA. And these are sort of what it looks like, and I'm going to take you through that today. But this is what I want to ask you today. And don't worry, there's going to be lots. And I'll give you slides after. I'm sorry, I moved too quick. I'm just trying to wake up. I know my buddy Dan there was loaded up on Red Bull for his, and I ate a bunch of dark chocolate coming down the elevator, hoping I could get to Dan's level, get up. But I want to know today, if you want to do one thing different with me today, and will you go through these steps with me today? Will you go through these automotive, personal wellness, 12 steps? Can we all work on ourselves today? You guys want to do that? Yes. Yeah? You guys want to do it? All right, this is cool. So help me out. My friends here are going to pass out. Not those yet, but see, what you get when you come to your first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous is you get a pin. And these little pins I wear on my lapel. Let's do one thing different today. So now that you're willing, like when I went up to my first meeting and got my first 24-hour chip, I want you to also have your first do one thing different pin. And I wear this on my lapel, and my friends wear it on their lapels, because if anything, if nothing else from this today, it's just a little reminder that if you get into something, and we'll go through this, but if there's something going on in your day that you sort of repeat again and again and again, just remember this. Just handle it a little bit differently. Take a different approach to something today. Do something different. So today we're going to go through this together, and I'm so stoked that you want to do this with me, because like I said, the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are so simple. And I want to create them, and I want to put them into an automotive mindset. Step 1, we admitted we were powerless over our process or staff, that our dealership had become unmanageable. See, in AA, admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable. Put it and frame it up this way with me. How many of you have those days at the dealership? How many of you have those days as vendors, consultants, trainers, where you just can't get a win? Right? You have that day at the dealership, it's chaotic, you just can't get a win. Like nothing goes right. Don't be afraid to put up your hands. We're all at a tech conference. Like Dan said, we're all geeking out together. But those days where it literally you're driving home in the car and you're just like, thank goodness today is over. Because today sucked, right? Anyone have those days that suck? Right? And you feel powerless over that, right? You feel powerless because it's just one thing after the other and you can't make things happen. You can't put things together the right way. Because when we're winning, right? And it's like, what do they say? Like when when's the best time to sell another car? Right after you sold one, right? Like you're just moving and moving and moving. But those days where it doesn't happen that way, it's one thing after another. And I think we can all agree that those days feel unmanageable. I'm going to frame it up, and I want you to answer this question honestly, though. Who cares to admit complete defeat? It's the very first line in the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the very first line of that book. Who dares to admit complete defeat? Second line is practically no one. See, no one put up their hands because we're in automotive. We're in this industry that is driven on ego and pride and machismo. We don't tell anybody we fail. We put up memes on social media telling you how bad we're going to kick ass today. We put up these memes because if we put up enough of them every day, maybe it's going to happen. Maybe if I put enough eagles flying over a mountain with a sunset and a unicorn shooting out of a volcano every morning saying, I'm going to be the best I can be, if I keep doing that every morning, maybe it's going to happen. And you know what? It doesn't happen that way. I wish it did, man. It'd be super easy. We got enough channels to put that junk up on. But it doesn't. And that's why I asked you the second question. Do you see? Because it's not in our nature to go, you know what? I suck today. I ask my daughter that sometimes. Tell me how you failed today. It's a big question. Tell me how you failed today. My friend Chad, that's his question, and I love that from him. Tell me how you failed today. We don't ask ourselves that, because it's like anything in automotive data. I close at 98%. Sure you do. How did you fail today? Oh, I never fail. We have to get over that. There's a vulnerability with saying, you know what, some days aren't great. Some days don't happen. And when that happens, we need to come to the realization that we can't fix everything ourselves. Because it's also something that's part and parcel of our industry, right? Something screws up, I'm going to fix it. There's people here I know that lead their organizations, that lead their stores, both sides of it, vendors and dealers alike, where something happens and we go, you know what, just give it to me, I'm going to take it. I'm going to fix it. You know what, it'll be faster if I do it. And the more we get into these habits, the more we create those mountains of problems I talked about that creates those continuous wakes of wreckage behind us, right? Because we keep taking it in. We keep going, screw it, I'm not going to empower anyone, I'm not going to champion anyone, I'm not going to lead properly, I'm just going to do it myself, and I'm going to get resentful that I have to. So let's park our pride, and let's ask for help. That's step number 3. See, 1, 2, and 3 are easy. They're easy steps to do. You don't have to actually physically do any work. You just have to say, you know what? Yep, some days, some things suck. And yeah, I can't do it all myself. And I'm going to start asking my team or my peers for some help. It's hard for us to do in this industry. It's really hard for us to do in this industry because we don't want to do it. Because we're great dealers, we're powerful dealer groups, and we're incredible vendors. We don't have these problems, but we do. And the more we keep isolating ourselves and the more we keep from being vulnerable from time and time again, bigger problems happen. And when these problems start to escalate, and when they start to build, what happens is we start to get resentful and then character defects start to happen. And we don't even see it. You see, it's bad habits. Do one thing different today. It's when you start to do things, something happens and you start to attack it the way you normally do, and you know it's probably not the best way to do it. That's a character defect. See, you start to handle things the way you always have. And this is what step 4 is all about, is making a searching and fearless professional inventory of ourselves. For an alcoholic, it's a searching and fearless moral inventory. See, when I was out there drinking, my drinking created all sorts of problems. Like I said, I was a liar, cheat, and a thief. So you can imagine when I did my inventory, well, I'm 20 years in, I'm still doing inventories. I never really stop. But those early inventories about my character defects were huge. And this is what I want to hand out to everyone today, if you guys would hand these out and help me out. See, what these guys are going to pass out to you is a 4-step worksheet. And what I want to sort of frame up for you guys is this, and this worksheet's really cool. And I know David's handed it out to people he's worked with after he saw this session back when I did it at Google, but here's what this worksheet's all about. Something happens at your place of work, and it turns you. And when it turns you, you act a certain way. And that's when your character defects come out. And I'll put it this way. You have that Monday morning meeting amongst your staff at the dealership. And you've spent 2 weeks getting a strategy together for that meeting. You've planned it. You've built your presentation. You've got 3 quarters worth of strategy ready to go for this meeting. And Brian from Fixed Ops derails the meeting with yet another stupid question. Right? Because every time we have a group meeting and a strategy meeting, Brian from Fixed Ops always asks stupid questions and the whole meeting derails. Am I right? Does everyone have a Brian? Everyone's got a Brian that screws up? It's on the vendor side as well. The vendor side, it's even worse. We have like handfuls of Brians, right? But here's what happens in that situation. Brian derails the meeting. You get pissed off. The meeting ends. You go behind the dealership with a cigarette and someone else and you go, man, Brian's an idiot. Right? Do you do that? You go off, and maybe you do that. Maybe a customer comes in, and it's Mr. Jones who comes in. He's been a long-term customer, but he's really high maintenance. And every time this guy walks in the door, you roll your eyes and go, oh, he's here again. This guy's going to be a monster pain in my ass today, and I got lots to do. It's a character defect of yours. You're starting to act out of your habits, and they're bad habits. I've done it too. I've done this. And I'll put it that way. This is for my inventory, my professional inventory. I had a client, very high maintenance client. And being a tech vendor, I have days with technology that I have the good days and I have the bad days. You know, sometimes servers go down, sometimes data doesn't flow, sometimes things break. And I had a client call us up, something went down that I wasn't aware of that my team should have alerted me on. But the client went right to the top, went to me and said, you know, and lit me up like a Christmas tree. You know, she called me up and like I was like Rockefeller Center, man. I was so lit up. Like she hit me with a ton of bricks over something that was broken that shouldn't have been broken, and she was right. So I go into fix mode because I want to get it fixed and I want to get it remedied for her as quickly as possible. I go to my team and I say, listen, they just called, this has happened. I need you to all rally around this, get this fixed. I know she's a huge pain in the ass, but fix it. What did I do? I character assassinated her. I don't know who on her side lit her up like a Christmas tree over something that was broken. I don't know how her day started. I'm not in the same room as her. I have no understanding of what sort of stress she may be under. But I immediately said to my entire team that this person was an immediate and an immense pain in the ass. So now, every time that client calls, I have set the tone amongst my entire team for this poor woman to be looked at as a major pain in the ass. And she's a really good friend of mine. So I have to give that person an amends, but that's one of those things you do when you build these lists of these inventories, of these character defects that you build. Because we do it every day. We gossip, we character assassinate, you know, maybe we don't practice the best business practices we can, but there are things in our professional lives that we should maybe do a better inventory on. This 4-step sheet, though, is really good because a lot of our character defects and a lot of the way we act when we, you know, when we aren't putting our best foot forward, it's because we get resentments first, and the resentments spark all sorts of awesome behavior among us. So once you've done that, you want to share that inventory. If you're working this page or you're just journaling yourself about what you want to work on, share it with someone. You see, in AA, I'll share my inventory with my sponsor, and then I'll go meditate and I'll turn it over to my higher power. You know, you don't have to necessarily do that with a professional inventory, but maybe you have a mentor. Maybe Mr. Kain here is your mentor. And you sit down with David privately because you know you can confide in David and it can be anonymous with David, and you go, David, this is the stuff I want to work on professionally. But it's got to be with someone you trust. and I think we all have mentors, or we all have sponsors or people we work with. Take time when you see yourself falling into defects of character, defects of professional character, find the time to stop, write them out, and find someone you know and turn it over. And if you're a person of a spiritual program and you get up in the morning, you pray, or like I do, like I meditate, turn it over. Sometimes that's all you have to do is turn it over and just ask for help with those things every single morning. It's a simple, simple exercise, regardless of your background or where you come from. When you do that, you should be ready to remove all these defects of character, especially those that are affecting your dealership. So again, 4 and 5 are work steps, pen and paper. But 6 is just about understanding where they are and always being willing just to remove them, always being willing to improve. You know, it's not difficult to take one thing every day, do one thing different and go, you know what, help me today with this. Talk to a teammate. You know what, if I start acting this way, or if I start going down a path that you see me again and again go down, either with my emotions or my moods or how I'm dealing with people, stop me. Help me remove that defect of my character. You can use your team for it. But again, this is stuff you have to take ownership of yourself first. Because like I said earlier, this is all about how we take ownership of ourselves, how we leverage these things day in and day out, because these steps are things that you can attach yourself to, not all of them every day, but 1 or 2. Humbly ask my peers to help me with my shortcomings. So 6 and 7 is just about that. You need to be willing every day to go, how can I just get rid of something, you know, how can there be a little piece of my nonsense that I can remove today? I've got big pieces of nonsense in my day that I have every day. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. She's got me pegged. But I also ask my peers to hold me accountable as well. I ask my friends and my family to hold me up to the standards that I'm trying to set for myself. It's important, because if we're honest about it and we ask our friends to, you know, call us out, you got to be ready for that. And I think it's a really good habit for all of us, because I think sometimes we're too busy patting ourselves on the back, telling ourselves we've done a good job. Right, Kenny? Too often we're celebrating our wins and not going, you know what? Kenny came up to me. If I said to Kenny, I want you to hold me to some standards. I'm trying to work on this. And if you see me going down this path, and Kenny goes, dude, yesterday, like you were all over the map with that character defect. You were all over the place. So you got to pick it up. That's good stuff, man. Like that's just good things for you professionally, day in and day out. Because I do it with my sponsees and my sponsors. Right? If I see my sponsee going, you know what, I just can't get it together. I can't make this meeting. I can't make that meeting. You know, I'm knocking on his door with the car going, get in, we're going to a meeting. Because that's why I have guys that hold me accountable every day for their sobriety. And the minute they start going off the tracks, it's my responsibility to help them, because if they've asked me to do it, I'm going to do it. If you've asked me to help you, I'm going to be such a pain in your ass that you're going to hate going to meetings until you're so sober you forget why you're there. But this is asking people, and I ask people to help me with my shortcomings as well, because I've been in something for 20 years, and I've been a sober person for 20 years. I'm still a train wreck on many, many a day. I like this one. Made a list of all staff we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. This is big. This goes back to how many of us dare to admit complete defeat. This is also something where, you know, you need to make a list. You don't have to do anything yet. Oops, bear with me. This keeps falling off. You don't have to do anything. You just have to make that list. Because remember what I said? Remember when you're out back smoking, talking about Brian and what an idiot he is every time you have a meeting? Brian's on the list. That customer that every time they roll in, even though their friends and their families have bought from you and they just come in and they want to take up a bunch of your time and you just think they're a pain in the ass, they're on the list. Family members that maybe have barked at because you're tired, because you just did 15 hours at the store, and it was slammed, and you get home and you're irritable and you're restless and you're discontent, and you snap at somebody, even if it's small, put them on the list. Because then when you get to 9, now you make direct amends to such people whenever you can, except when to injure them or others. See, I'm Canadian, So I'm all about apologizing all the time. Like my whole day as a Canadian is like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Like the Canadian guys are laughing because it's true. We spend a lot of our time apologizing, you know. And apologizing is just a word though. See, this is action. I can say sorry, but it's not going to mean anything. When I make an amends to someone, if I've small or large, it's got to mean something. You got to stand with that person. You got to reach out to that person, and you got to sit down with him, and you got to make those amends. And you got to say to Brian, you know, I character assassinated you, and that wasn't fair. You know, I talked about you behind your back, and I set a tone with people on staff, and it wasn't fair, and I owe you that amend. And I may not be able to undo anything I did in the past. I can work now towards this. And you've got to make that amendment. And you've got to make it genuine. You've got to sort of lay out maybe what you're going to work on, not just say you're sorry, and I'll try not to do it again. Try to think about how you're going to remedy it moving forward when you do talk to that person, when and if you make those amends. And sometimes it's a small amend. You know, I had a business partner, and I just changed companies recently, as David said. My old business partner, Barry, and I love him to death, and I still talk to him every other week. But if you ever came to a show like this with the two of us, we fight like an old married couple, like nonstop. And a lot of times it's just the way we are, but there are some times when things get stressful and things get tense, and we'll come at each other. And I'll come at him all the time. I'll let stuff he does, you know, I would let it just get under my skin, and I would get so resentful, and I would turn and I would say something so hurtful. And I would. I know how to do it. If you want me to shut you down real quick, I can be super hurtful, and it's not nice. It's one of the worst things about me is I can come at you and I can say something devastating. And I can do it in the blink of an eye. It's one of my biggest character defects, and it was with Barry. And I do it to him the most. I do it to him the most. The people closest to, I would just throttle. So I would do this, and I would sit down with Barry, and I wouldn't just sort of come in and nonchalantly into his office. I would lay it all out and go, dude, everything I said about yesterday was completely wrong, and I'm really going to keep trying to work on that. I know we work in close quarters, and we travel a lot, and we spend more time with each other than our families, but I am going to continue to try to work on this the best I possibly can, because it's not fair what I did. And that takes a lot to do that. There's a vulnerability in that helps you lead better, though. The minute you start doing that with your own people, the minute you start taking that vulnerability inside your teams and the vulnerability amongst your staff about what you're doing, what you're trying to work on, all of a sudden there's a lot more power in that. There's a lot more respect. There's a lot more empathy when we do that. Number 10 is just to continue to take this professional inventory. Like I said, step 4, you have your worksheets. That's sort of the big work. But every single day, I end my day in a journal. I was on the plane last night. I had a very long day running around Toronto yesterday. And I just sort of look at my day and I try to inventory it out. How'd I do today? Did I put my best foot forward with everything I did today? Was I thoughtful? Was I mindful? Was I empathetic? Did I think about others before I thought about myself today? And that's just that quick review of every single day that I do. And it's a good thing to do. When you're driving home, you have that coffee or whatever you want to do. It's something that I try to do every single day, and it's just that small inventory. The step 4 worksheets, that's a lot of writing and a lot of things you can do, but this is just an everyday piece of what you can do. And then sought through honesty, education, and empowerment with my staff to gain a more mindful awareness of my dealership and how to lead most effectively. You see, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which I use, day in and day out, it's a different step for me every day. It really is. I don't do all 12 every day, but all of these things continue to make me seek honesty. They make me seek education, and I start thinking about the people that I work with, the people I work for, and how can I lead most effectively? How can I be a positive agent of change? And how can I lead by example based on the actions that I am trying to live my own life by? Had an awakening as a result of these steps. We try to carry this message to our employees, practice these principles in all our affairs. This is almost a direct write from step 12. For 21 years I've been in a program that has got me sober, got me a wonderful wife, got me this funny 12-year-old kid. I spoke in 5 countries this year. I was on stage at Google in California doing this presentation. That was kind of a trip. Go to Google, walk out on stage when they think you're going to talk about automotive websites, and tell them you're an alcoholic. That room shifted. It's like people were checking their programs going, I thought he was talking about responsive design. Same stuff. "12 Simple Steps." It's given me everything. This ironic industry that I love so much that I didn't think I'd like at all. And a lot of really great people that I've met because of these steps. And that's why I want to share them with you. That's why I think they're important. And I honestly believe that we can all use these. And as I move forward with this, I'm starting to play around with trying to build small groups for us in this vertical to do these together, as I do them with my own sponsees. So if it's something that you like and you think about and you want to do it after, come up and see me. I am going to start putting together some small groups so we can actually do this just like the alcoholics do. You all got your pin. You're in my space now, right? But it's simply just about doing one thing different today. It's really how I look at Alcoholics Anonymous. I got to walk out the door, and I just have to do one thing different every day. There are 2 days in which we should not worry. 2 days which should be kept free from fear and apprehension. And one of these days is yesterday with its faults and cares, its aches and pains, its faults and blunders. Yesterday is gone. All the money in the world cannot bring back tomorrow. We can't undo a single thing we said. We can't erase a single act we performed. Yesterday is gone. The other day we should not worry about is tomorrow, with its large promise and poor performance. Yet tomorrow is also beyond our immediate control. The sun will rise, either in splendor or behind a mask of clouds, but until it does, we have no stake in tomorrow, for it is yet unborn. That leaves only one day, today. Any of us can fight the battles of just one day. It is when you and I had the burdens of those 2 awful eternities, yesterday and tomorrow, that we break down. It is not the experience of today that drives us mad. It is remorse over what happened yesterday or the dread of what tomorrow may bring. Let us therefore live but one day at a time. Do one thing different today. Thank you so much.